If you now speak into the mic.
Does it work now? Yes, great. Thank you.
One, two. If you can make your way back and be quiet. And the organizer walks away. Typical. Right, so we've got one talk coming up now, which is optimizing tips for Vue component library, which pretty interesting. Like, we all build components, right? And whether you think it or not, I think we all build a library, whether it's a custom library for your own internal project or for public use. So there's always a library within your application, and that's your use of components. So it'll be interesting to see how this talk will maybe help build your applications or your public APIs. And then after that, I'll do a quick 15-minute talk probably just on my application, what I've been working on, which is a pretty big enterprise-based application. So you'll be able to see something that's built with Vue that's super powerful. So hopefully that will entertain you. So yeah, Vincent's coming up now.
Okay, good night. I'm Vincent. I'm from China, and I work in London for 2 months to work with the team in here to build our component library. This presentation is probably based on my last 2 months of experience. I have thought a lot about so it's something about me. I'm working in a medium-sized company in China. We have about 500 engineers in our company, so there are about 5 products. Now we have very different components across our products. Every product try to build components once and once again. So that's why we are trying to build some unified components library. That's why it's happened. From last year, I lead the refactoring work in my company. I have refactored for 2 very giant projects. So some of the ideas in this presentation come from this period of experience. And my current work is try to help other developers try to make their project easier to maintain. Try to think, when they write some code, I told them how to maintain or construct their code, something like this is my main work. So before we talk about component library, I think it's very necessary to think about performance first. Performance, have you ever think about this area with red line there? When I was having some interview with others, I would like to ask them what happened exactly there and how to reduce the time there, because only few of the guys try to answer this question, and it's very interesting because here this is actually the true screenshot of one of our products. It costs about 800 milliseconds here. It's a very long time. So what happened there? If we try to open a V8, the Chrome's runtime call stack on timeline, we will get something like this. We'll find here we spend about 600 milliseconds to compile our code and about almost 20 milliseconds to fix our code. Why is that very long time? Because here on the right side, you can see there are 2 very big JavaScript code. One is almost 900 kilobytes, and another one is almost 500 kilobytes. I'm not very sure how many products you have built have almost the same size of compiled JavaScript code. I think lots of companies or a lot of small projects, they have something like this, the same problem. So here, reference to some document by Google. There are some, in order to reduce the time, we have to make our JavaScript code smaller than before. So there will be 3 kind of ways to splitting our code. The first kind of vendor splitting is something like we are trying to remove or separate the vendor from our app trunk, something like Vue.js or Lodash, something like this. And the second is entry point splitting. And very interesting things is that when I talked to some developers, they told me they do not want to use entry point splitting because they think if I use this when the user navigate from the one page to another page, they have to download another static file. They do not think it's very good. But the truth is, for example, if we have a login page and a main page, not all of our customers will go to the main page from login page. So we can, of course, we can speed up the login page by using a standalone endpoint. And if we want to speed up when user navigate from login page to another page, we can use some preload technology to speed up the second page. So there is nothing we can do to solve this problem. So help do this, of course, try to do some endpoint splitting. And the third one is dynamic splitting. It was provided by a statement in Webpack, like import. It will respond with it will return a promise for you. And now Vue support async components you can find in this document. And even for routes, you can try to use some lazy loading routes to load your routes async with some async way. When you do something like this, you can find the code you compile with Webpack. They will separate all the code from this entry. For example, here is my async component, or the below one is full of the view. Everything used in this view file or connect to this file will be separated from your main JavaScript. So if user only go to one page for our product, most users would like to create lots of detail page. So if they only open the detail page, we will download only the certain assets for the detail page. Nothing else will be downloaded for the browser. So it will speed up the first page because we cannot always assume our customer will use lots of all the features of our product. Some customers, they would like to open a page and leave away. So it's necessary to try to speed up or reduce the file size of the first screen. So this is the project side aspect, but for component library, we are trying to help our developers when they build their components or when they try to optimize their project. We will help them try to left no unnecessary code in any compile trunk. This is what we are doing now. So let's start to write our first component. It's very easy if we use Vue CLI, the third version. We only need to create a project and try to build with a target of library, and it will work everything for you. It worked. I finished all this. Yeah. But now, then, if we try to add some third-party library, for example, Lodash, I think almost every project uses Lodash. So if we do nothing else and compile again, we will find the compile size. I mean, the size of our compile code is increased by almost 70 kilobits. It's very large size, in fact. It's not the worst thing. So let's think about, this is our first component, so let's think about second component. It's, just try to imagine that two line of copy is some kind of two components. I just do not want to do this again. We create a project and and use Webpack bundle analyzer to figure out how many bundle or dependencies we actually use in our compiled file. And we use two components. Both of them use Lodash as their dependence. And now we compile the project and to see what happened when we compile them. This is a screenshot when we compile the first project. And the result is on the right side, you can see there is a second component and the first component. The size is more than 100 kilobits, which means they both of them, including the source code or Lodash. No one, so this will, as a result, there will actually be 2 copies of Lodash source code. This is actually the unnecessary code in our code base. So have you missed something like this? That's how to solve it. I think some of you might use external before in your Webpack. And when you use externals, it's something you tell Webpack you do not need to copy the source code to my compile site or compile file. The only thing you need to do is try to keep all the dependency information in my compile code, something like this. This is the UMD format file, and you can see the compile code. All that's required is remain in the compile code. If you do not use, sorry, I do not try to make a comparison between these 2 kinds of work. If you do not use external, you will find there is a copy of the source code of Lodash in this file. It's very different. And you can see when we have external here, the compiled file size is almost the same like the original one without Lodash. It will not increase the file size. But here is another concept in Webpack I would like to mention here. In Webpack, there is something called dependency graph here. It's because when Webpack try to compile your project by each endpoint, and it will try to recursively to find all the dependence of your endpoint. For example, here. Now think about this one. If our project has dependence of package A, package B, and package C, and your first package has its interdependence like package C and B, and actually there are not of the same dependence in your project or in your dependent graph. So as a result, when you compile all the code, Webpack will try to find the same one, and they often, there is some very interesting word here, often just one be loaded by browser. So have you ever tried to think about what situation will break these rules? There will be more than one copy. Because NPM will always follow semantic version rules. If try to think we have a project and still this picture. Now we try to use Lodash 4 as our dependence of our project, but when we are using the project package A, and they have dependence of Lodash version 1. So if NPM by the rule of semantic version, if the first number is different, that means there might be some break change between these 2 versions of library. So if NPM or Webpack just use the newest version of the library, it will may break the code in package A. So in that case, they will use 2 versions, or both of these 2 versions in your compiled code. This is some kind of special case for this. Then we try to use external for both of these components, and as a result, there will left only one Lodash in the mid area. We move the dependence from our component. It's not moved because they will compile in another file, but actually there will only be one copy of Lodash across all our chunks. Yeah, it works. It's the first problem. So think about, now we have solved the JavaScript code. There will be no unnecessary JavaScript code in our file or in the first page. How about the CSS file? I thought before I write this presentation, I thought it might not work. But when I write this presentation and I write some code and I find I only need to use something like externals to help us on this problem. So let's create another component called another component, and we use view multi-select another component as a dependency of this component. So it's just some demo code here. We import both of the view file and the CSS file in this code, in this component. And of course, we have to add externals here because it's some kind of dependence of this component. If I have another component also use this dependency, I hope the Webpack, when he compile my project, there will only be one copy of this third-party library. So this what I do here, try to use externals here. I thought that this index CSS file will be much more bigger than I expected because I did not expect that Webpack will do this for me. But the truth is, JavaScript here, when we use external here, Webpack will keep also the dependence relations here for CSS code. So we will use JavaScript to help us to maintain the dependence relations between CSS file. So imagine we have two use case. We have two components. One component is button, and the other is modal. Of course, modal components will have a dependency of button because in the foot area, there will be a button in this modal. Okay, so for the project, if they only use modal components, we wish the final version of compiled file will include the button, both the JavaScript code and the CSS code of button components. According to the dependency graph mentioned here, of course, they will include, because the button is the dependence of modal. So when I include modal here, they of course will include all the code about the button. So it works. And another use case, if we try to use both modal and the button here, and also look at this picture, Webpack will help us to keep only one copy of the code of both JavaScript code and the CSS code for button component. So everything works here if we only write one component in one library. So, but how about we try to write more than one component in a repo, Git repo here? I try to use Bootstrap view that components as a test, and in order to use the style sheet, all the style from the code base, I have to import its compiled CSS file here. As a result, you can see even I only use the modal component here, the CSS file on that page is about more than 115 kilobytes. So that means on that page, I only need very small pieces of CSS file in fact, but there actually been lots of unnecessary files, isn't it? So since we have solved the problems for one component in one repo, or in another word, is try to maintain one component in one package. So is there any way for us to maintain, to try to manage more than one package in one Git repo? So of course, there is something called mono repo there. We use, the truth is in our component library, we try to use Nona to manage all our components. So with Nona, we can quickly add dependence between some inner components. So I would like to, I will stop to talking too much about Nona itself. You can try to use this because all Nona doing is try to help you to maintain more than one packages in one repo, and they have lots of great command for you. And the most interesting thing I built with Nona is that, so all the talks till now, we assume that we will provide a compiled version of our components library to our developers. We do not provide the source code. We do not want them to use our source code. The same as when we develop our components. That means when I try to use lint to check all code in our code base. If I do not compile all the code in that project, lint may tell you that they cannot find the file or a certain file for you because you have not compiled to that file. So without some special thing about the dependency graph is that they have some order, special order for this. For this one, for this picture, if we have not compiled package E here, when you compile packages this one, they will give you some error for this because they cannot find the compiled version of package E. But Luna try to solve this problem for you. When you try to use Luna run some command, they will help you to run command batch by order. Those which without interdependence will run in the first order and then others. There will be a special order for you to run all the commands in all your packages. This is very interesting when I find it. So how about, we actually built, for me, I actually built the component library with everything I talked before. But the truth, I thought it will not be very complex. But the truth is, when I actually write 11 components with all the things I talked before, I find the project become very complex because I have to take care of any possibility or write a lot of script to do something like semantic release or something else like this. So how about we just publish our Vue source code, instead of try to use asking our developers to use the compiled version. So the good thing is you will find it's very easy to build this component library because all you provide to your developer is the source code. So when they try to use your component, it's just like they write in their own code base. They will do nothing. They will do everything they can do in their project. So it's very easy for them to optimize their project. And it's very easy to use. The only thing they need to do is to change their Webpack config and to resolve all the code from some special modules folder. That's all they need to do. But we do not choose to use this solution because we faced some problem before in some of our other projects. The first thing is if we try to use some special Webpack or Bible plugins or any special Webpack config in the component library, everything should remain the same in your project. Otherwise, they cannot compile the code from your shared component library. This is the first thing. And the second, because every time the project compile themselves, they have to compile all the code in your component library again and again. It will make it will increase time when we use CI for our publish. So every time we push our code, it will spend more than 10 minutes to compile all the code, including the code for the project and the code for the component library. And it will cost more time as our expected. So in this time, we chose to provide a compiled version for our developers. So they need to care nothing about, rather than they can just import our component on demand for their project, and they can try to optimize anything they want. Okay, that's all for this talking. Any questions? Yes?
How do you manage to implement Lerna with your CI?
The truth is Luna has some special command for you, like Luna version. And sorry, I cannot remember all the details. Sorry, let me try to check. Oh, this is another project. Try. Oh, sorry. Is this? Oh, sorry, wait a moment. I cannot find the project itself. Oh, this one. This is the actual project, a very huge project I have built. And in order to, this one, oh. So now I have a command like lunar version, and you can use some arguments for it, and it will work the same like semantic release, and they will look at your commits and figure out how can I update your version. If you have some breaking changes, they will just increase the first number for you. So this is the first thing we do, try to figure out for all of our components, what's the next version of them, and then try to build the code and try to use some. We actually write a lot of script to do this work. This is deploy. So that's how I describe. I actually write a lot to following all the things I mentioned in this talk. It's not like after we figure out how many components should update their version, and then I try to figure out how many components should be uploaded to our local npm. So then publish. That's all we have done now.
In your opinion, which one is better, to have a multi-entry point or to use dynamic imports?
There is no such a conclusion for this, which good or bad. For example, if we, for most of the case, if we want to reduce the complex of your project, multi-endpoint, it might be a better choice. Because when you use dynamic importing, we often suggest our developer only use in root level, but it's that if you only use dynamic importing in root level, it's almost the same. They try to solve the same problem. So we actually suggest they use, or you can try to think this in a business way. For example, if we have a login page and some dashboard page, of course they have to be two endpoint. And if you have some small page in the dashboard, and you want to build dashboard like a single page application, of course you can try to use dynamic importing. Okay. So
We're actually running out of time now. 2 talks.
oh, sorry.
No, I don't need to shout. So, quickly, before we leave and go to the pub, we'll spend 30 seconds looking over a few things. Right, if this loads, it's not going to load. Well, we'll find out. Oh, there we go. Right, so right. So, thank you for coming. Who's not been to a Vue.js meetup yet? Put your hand up. Oh, we've got a few newbies. That's good. Who came to the conference? Cool, that's a good amount. So the conference, which I ran solely, don't ever do that. Get a team behind you. So we've got the photos uploaded now. Unfortunately, the videos won't be online anymore because we didn't get them recorded as planned. So anyway, all of the photos online, so there's hundreds of photos that are all brilliant. You can see what the day was like. So if you want to go next year or want to go to another Vue.js conference, then you can get a feel of what it looks like. Also, if you're lucky enough and you want to go next year, early bird tickets, super early bird tickets, because I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's a blind sale. So if you want to buy your tickets, you can. They're super cheap. They'll be much cheaper than what the tickets would be on when they're on their early bird sales. So just go to /2019 from Vue.js.London and you can buy your tickets there if you want. And if you want any goodies, such as t-shirts and hoodies from the Vue.js meetup to support running the meetup, because obviously we provide this for you for free every week or every few months. Costs for beers, food, etc. have to come from somewhere. So if you want to support us, then just buy a hoodie or a t-shirt or something. That's a nice way just to say thanks, for example. Plus you get something back from it. So you can go to, I'm actually going to put a link on the main website so you can actually go to the shop and find some cool, great Vue.js London designs and buy what you like. For example, if you want to buy this one, you can buy a huge amount of stuff. Baby clothes, because you know everyone needs baby clothes and bibs. Actually, we probably all need bibs and pillows, so you can buy what you like, and it's all really good. For example, ta-da! So thank you for coming. The pub we're going to, if you follow people that have been here from last time, it's just around the corner to the left. I've got to wrap some stuff up and then I'll meet you there. But thank you all for coming. See you next time.